right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the NFP Review Board for Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. Nolan, will you please call the roll?
Hollander? Here. Frederickson?
Here.
Rowe? Stemple?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
Mergia? Bassett?
Here.
All right. Can I get a motion to excuse absent members?
So moved.
Support.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, on to item B, adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve, to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, do I have any support?
Support.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. On to item C, the approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the Natural Features Protection Review Board meeting on September 23rd, 2025. Are there any amendments or comments related to the draft minutes from that meeting? All right, I'm hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 23rd, 2025 NFP meeting?
So moved.
Support. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D, public comments. If there are any general comments from the public, please come forward, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. All right, seeing none in person. Do we have any call-in comments? All right. Maybe we'll give it a minute delay or so because there's still kind of streaming, kind of a delay for comments.
Yeah, we could give it a second if you want.
Yeah, we'll just give it a minute just to make sure. All right, still sounds like no call-in comments, so we'll move on. Board member comments. Are there any comments from the board? Sounds like none. Moving on, item F, new business. 433 Reed Court / Reed Avenue Stormwater Restoration Project. I think we'll wait and do public comments after the presentation.
Yeah, so real quick, I'll give a quick overview staff report. Should all have that in your packet in front of you. You would have seen this project, if it seems familiar, you would have seen it back in May. It was here for a variance request or recommendation from the board, and that variance basically was due to the fact that the work involved, work within the riparian zone and within delineated wetlands, and no new stormwater BMPs are allowed in those areas. So it was one of those variances that was, we had some discussion about it after the fact related to new stormwater BMPs. And overall, the project scope hasn't changed since then. This is still primarily a wetland restoration project with some pedestrian amenities, and is in alignment with some various sub-area plans, including some of our local watershed/sub-watershed plans. This was a brownfield site originally. Staff were working through the process of having that transferred to city ownership. And the parcel is currently zoned RM15. Right now, they're seeking full NFP board approval to move forward with full site plan approval, which they actually had a initial site plan meeting back at the beginning of October. So they're currently going through that process in parallel with NFP, which we do allow. And right now, the staff recommendation is for full board approval. So with that, I'll pass it off to Mr. Palumbo to provide the overview.
Great, thank you, Nolan. Hello, NFP board. I'm here to, like Nolan said, I was here not too long ago, back in April, to present for a variance for this project and bring the project back now. So, yeah, before I get started, my name's Tom Palumbo. I'm one of the engineers on staff with the city of Kalamazoo. And this Reed Court project is something that has been in the works for a very long time. It is a project that's funded by NRDA, damage assessment funding from an old paper mill site, and that funding has covered quite a few projects in the Kalamazoo River watershed, and especially on Portage Creek, and this is one of them. So, yeah, I've got just a few slides. We can, I can kind of go through them. If there's ones that anybody finds important, we can come back to them later too. You can go ahead to the next one. So, starting with the parcel, this is 433 Reed Ave. I've often referred to this as the Reed Court project because it sits along Reed Court, even though the address is Reed Ave. If there's any confusion there, that's all that is. But Portage Creek runs straight through this parcel. It's a brownfield parcel. It doesn't have much potential for development, which is why we're looking at doing a habitat and water quality project on this site rather than the usual use of brownfield areas, which is to redevelop properties that have previously been built on and blighted. So, yeah, as I mentioned, it's also using NRDA funds. In the past, there has been some remediation work done on this parcel. The EPA came through and did some dredging in Portage Creek, and we've got some notes on that in this slide, kind of getting into the weeds of contamination, concentration that they were targeting in the soil as they looked at it. You can go to the next slide. This project is part of, as I mentioned, a greater effort to clean up Portage Creek and by extension the Kalamazoo River. And it fits in, I've got some pictures shown here of another project that was done just a few years ago at Millen Park, where the weir was taken out, and that area was restored to a natural habitat. And that's kind of along the lines of what we're doing here, is restoring something to be closer to its natural condition. Something we're not doing is, we're not realigning the creek, but we're improving the floodplain that sits next to the creek. So if you want to go to the next one. Quite a few different elements that are part of this project. that are shown in the plans here. The main feature is swales that are going to pick up stormwater and also excess creek flow. And can you go to the next slide? I'm trying to remember. Okay, never mind, go back. Sorry about that. We've got bioswales that run through here, and we've got details on those that basically call out what it has to what the bioswale has to consist of, and that is there's some rock to stabilize the channel, and also some native vegetation that's going to be planted in there, and together that A, prevents erosion, and B, it improves water quality, and C, it provides habitat. There's also quite a few other smaller features here. There's one thing that we're looking to do here is adding a sand pit that's for turtles to lay eggs in. That's something that's not found at this site right now that would be found in a natural stream corridor. There's also hibernaculums, got to make sure I say that right, which are areas for smaller animals to hibernate, and even bugs that are designed to stay a little bit warmer in the winter, provide a little bit of shelter. We've also got some micro pools shown in here, and see if I'm forgetting anything. There's a pathway that goes out to a boardwalk, and I know I'm forgetting something. Oh, and a stormwater treatment device, which was actually the cause of us needing a variance at this site. That was what triggered that. So, yeah, it's quite a few different things that are going to be working together here. Can you go to the next one? This kind of goes back to the existing site, I guess, but as you can see, it sits in a floodplain. We've also got some wetland in this area. I think I have another slide on that. But yeah, this sits in the floodplain of Portage Creek, and that floodplain is, I think, I would call it the famous floodplain in Kalamazoo, or infamous. It's subject to flooding when the Kalamazoo River rises. The area between Reed and the Kalamazoo River along Portage Creek is so flat that the river really, it doesn't have to come real high. We don't need like a 2018 scale flood to see a little bit of flooding along Portage Creek here. This project does not eliminate the floodplain. It would take a much larger project. You'd have to dig a lot more than we're going to be digging here. And I don't think that anything that just sits in this 4-acre footprint could ever eliminate the flooding there, especially because that flooding, so much of it is coming from the Kalamazoo River and not from Portage Creek. Go to the next one. I knew I had a slide on wetlands. Yeah, so we've got, out of the 4 1/3 acres, 1.5 acres of that is wetland. There's 2 wetland areas that are kind of split down the middle, and a lot of that is because of the EPA's work. My understanding is that they came through and they used an area for access, and then that kind of took away a little bit of that wetland area. But these wetlands are pretty much chock full of invasive species, especially, buckthorn, honeysuckle, purple loosestrife, and periwinkle. We do have a review done on endangered species, but there were not any at risk to be found in this area. That being said, a lot of this habitat is designed to encourage or to promote more of those species to be able to live in this area along the creek. Next slide. Right now, at the bridge where Reed Ave goes over Portage Creek, there is a storm sewer that discharges right in that spot that is draining much of the area to the west of there. So we have some storm sewers that are connected to this. What this project does is it diverts storm first flushes and at a minimum first flush, but basically it's gonna carry the dirtiest stormwater away into the treatment device, and the treatment device will trap sediment at the bottom and any floating debris on the top, and those are really, really effective at removing total suspended solids, TSS. It's rated for 80% TSS removal, and then that, as a result, we end up seeing less phosphorus and nitrogen from fertilizer and less trash that gets into the creek. There's other forms of pollution that also that we'll take care of, but I think the biggest ones are the fertilizer and the trash. I think I've touched on this quite a bit, but this will provide a lot of new wildlife habitat with some of the features listed here. And it's also an opportunity for recreation, education, and any other public use. So what's being proposed right now is a mulch trail that goes out to a boardwalk, and it's a dead end. It's not like a through path or a cut through or anything like that, but it just gives the public the ability to actually go out and see the work that took place here, and how is it doing? How is this thing looking? Educational signage is part of that. It has a nice connection to the KRVT because the KRVT there's a section of it that comes through downtown to the south. It goes through Upjohn Park, which is just north of here. It goes through the farmers market, and then if you continue south, it actually goes along Reed Court. So this has very close proximity to that trail, and it's kind of a nice little stopping point. It's also got a really nice connection to the Edison neighborhood, which is an underserved neighborhood, and provides a resource there. So I believe that's everything I have. If you could just flip through the last few slides here. I think it's just pictures. Is that the last one? That might be the last one.
Yeah, that's the last slide. So,
Okay.
Yeah, we can open it up to board members.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. I think really quick, if we could just open it up for public comment. So if there's anybody in person for public comments, please step forward. Looks like nothing in person. Is there any call-in comments? All right, we'll give that just a quick minute so that way board members can kind of think about stuff a little bit too. Still sounds like no call-in comments. We can move on to board discussion. Just comment from me. I think I really like the thoughtfulness as far as like integrating wildlife habitat and that type of stuff, like trying to improve the ecological function of the site. The sandy turtle nesting spot is kind of a cool, interesting idea. I do think kind of looking at like the long game that it would probably more likely get, if it was just like left open sand, it'd probably get pretty weeded over. So I think that would require somewhat routine maintenance to keep it in that kind of state. And, you know, whether or not that's something we want to like commit to maintaining or not is one thing, but just kind of a perspective on that. But yeah, something that came to mind for me.
I have a question. I'm interested to know how this project will change the sight lines into the site from the KRVT along Reed Court. You mentioned there are a lot of invasive understory plants. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, right now there's a chain link fence that runs along Reed Court. And then right on the other side of that fence, you have the creek, and then the creek runs, you know, then you have the banks and the floodplain, which is the area that we'll be working on. So there will be more sight lines, at least in the short term, with invasive species coming out. As you know, as things grow back, hopefully a lot more native and a lot less invasive, some of those sight lines could go away. I don't think sight lines have been a huge consideration of this. There's been a lot of study done on the water quality and the ecology. I don't know that as much has been done for aesthetics outside of the renderings that have been created and the design of the trail and boardwalk. Thanks.
Hey there, I actually had a question piggybacking, similar, trying to picture how, looking at the layout plan versus the drawings, it looks like there's quite a bit of trees on either side of the entrance to that. So I was wondering the same thing with safety and if any lights are going in or how you guys anticipate making this feel safe when it's dark out.
Yeah, thanks for asking. There's not lighting being proposed with this. Safety is a consideration. It's something I've already presented it to public safety and to parks and discussed with them. I picture that being an ongoing conversation. Nolan, can you go back one slide? What you can see is that the trail and the boardwalk takes up a very small part of the parcel, and it's going to be designed to not be accessible. The rest of the site will not be made to be any more accessible than it is now. As you know, as part of a wildlife habitat, I guess sanctuary area. So it's a pretty small portion. It doesn't. It's not creating a huge area that people, I guess, could get lost in or could hide in. So yeah, it is an ongoing conversation though. Because yeah, there's definitely, I think something we see with parks all the time is there's vandalism and other uses that are not illegal or intended. So yeah, thanks.
I see listed in the plan that there's 6 dead trees or maybe 5 dead trees that are going to be removed. Are those strictly just for safety purposes for executing the work?
Those are more for executing the work.
Okay, they're just in the way.
So the bioswales are routed in a way that avoids removing trees, and everything else is placed specifically to prevent that to be needed to the most extent possible. I think that doing this scope of work, this amount of improvement without removing any trees at all would be near impossible. I've got full plan drawings. I think they were attached to meeting, I know they were online, but there's a sheet number 3. I don't have it in the slides here, but it is in the plans. It lists every single tree above a diameter of 10 inches. There's 165 of them that were surveyed, and yeah, like you said, 6 being removed. So, yeah, I would say that this was done to avoid that to the greatest extent possible.
No, yeah, I think that's great. Just, yeah, I assume the removals were for executing the work or safety reasons for, being in the area while working.
Yeah, it's a variety. I mean, it's, I would say all of the above. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
All right, is there any more discussion from the board? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the NFP site plan for the 433 Reed Court, Reed Avenue Stormwater Restoration Project, conditioned upon full site plan review?
So moved?
Support.
All right. This one will need a roll call vote. Nolan, will you please call the roll?
Hollander,
Yes.
Frederickson,
Yes.
Stemple,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 2, 3317 and 3329 South Burdick Street Cold Storage Facility. Nolan, can you provide some background on this project?
Yes, give me one moment. So this property is located along South Burdick Street. It's technically the South Westnedge neighborhood, but it's sort of the southern half of Burdick heading towards Kilgore. That area has some industrial use already, with the railroad tracks following parallel or perpendicular to a lot of properties over there. And the primary project area is 3317 and 3329 South Burdick. Those are both contiguous with each other, right next to each other. And the proposed work is basically building a new cold storage building with some asphalt paved areas for equipment maneuvering, and then the addition of some concrete sidewalk, curb and gutter, stormwater management on site. But essentially, project is just for that cold storage building as sort of an accessory use type situation to some of the industrial work that happens down in that part of town. These parcels are both in NFP due to some established wetland areas at the back side of them. I believe there's actually an MDEQ or Eagle delineated wetland area on the back of a lot of these properties. And their proximity to Portage Creek, which runs right by those railroad tracks. The properties also are pretty heavily wooded, although I'll let the applicant speak to the percentage of overstory and understory. And then, of course, with this being NFP properties, there's stormwater considerations. And then one other thing to point out, there was no rare species review required for these 2 properties, so M&FI review wasn't required. Right now, the applicant is looking for full NFP board approval as they navigate our site plan review process. They are currently scheduled, I believe, for early November for a site plan review meeting. So with that, I'll invite the applicant up to speak to the project a bit more.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Dave Kudwa. I'm an engineer with SME, and we've been working with Stafford Smith for about 6 months on this project and thought it was time to get your feedback on what we were working on. I was on site earlier this afternoon and got chased by one of the big neighbor dogs. I thought I was going to get eaten. I'm like, hopefully that's not a precursor to our meeting this afternoon. So kind of a scary experience. So we're working on a cold storage building. Stafford Smith has been there on Burdick Street for quite a long time, and they would like to expand and add a 140 by 80 storage building. And by cold storage, it's just ambient temperature. It's not actually going to be freezer storage or anything like that. No utilities to this site, no sanitary sewer, no water, obviously electrical service to the building. And then we'll have stormwater service to the site as well. As Nolan had discussed, we're keeping it on the front end of the site as close to Burdick Street as possible. We do have about a 58-foot setback to the front of the building. We wanted to leave just enough space so that they can maneuver equipment in there. We did in our survey locate the Eagle Wetland Conservation Easement signs. We stayed 25 feet away from those just to do some grading through there, but kind of the combination of those two things, keeping it as close to Burdick Street as possible while staying out of that tree line as much as we could. So that's generally the site. As you can see, we just called out a couple highlights. About a 200-foot, 250-foot buffer between the back of the building and to the water surface is what we've estimated. And then we want to upgrade the stormwater management system on site. Of course, all the hard surface area will go to mechanical treatment for pretreatment, then to a small detention basin, and then ultimately discharge to the Burdick Street public stormwater system. So, Nolan, if you want to go to the next one. Yeah, here's just a couple photos, and a pretty nondescript site. Not as exciting as our last project, unfortunately, but pretty flat site, no significant topography on the front end. Our slopes range from maybe 1%, 1.5% slope to close to maybe 13% kind of on the back, but that's the greatest. So the majority of the site looks kind of as it does here. I know it's hard to perceive slope from photos, but not any significant topographic features on the front part of this parcel. And then, just the site conditions. I'm getting ahead of myself. We have public storm sewer located adjacent to the site on Burdick Street, and of course, we're going to upgrade our storm sewer, as we'll talk about here in a minute, to catch all the runoff from the maneuvering area in front on the asphalt pavement, along with the runoff from the building. So. Yeah, just a couple of this is my first time submitting to this board on woodland preservation notes, so I'd appreciate your feedback too on how we're approaching this. The way we looked at it is we have about 2.75 acres of the 5.28 acres are covered with woodland, and we're proposing to remove approximately 0.3, which is right there on that front, kind of that jut out area in front. The remaining woodland area would be 2.45 acres, which would leave us woodland coverage of about 89%. So there's no way we could develop any further back than that conservation easement limit to the east. So this is really the only area on this site that can be developed. So, yeah. And then our proposed conditions, so we'll just kind of get into the site plan. You can see where the building's going to be, and then we'll have an asphalt maneuvering area. There's no parking up front. This is just going to be a maneuver lane. We have one parking space, an ADA space, at the entrance to the building, but that's the only parking that we'll have here. The setback could be less, but again, there's not a front yard setback required for this site, but again, that setback was set so that we could have maneuvering space for Stafford Smith to get their equipment in and out of there. So you can see the building location. You can see the small stormwater detention on the north side. And then there's the mechanical treatment is on the north side of that access drive, kind of that, I'm just going to call it a parking lot. It's not a parking lot, if you'll allow me to do that. And then all the water will be directed then out under controlled release to Burdick Street. And then Nolan, if you want to jump to the next one.
Yep, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Again, just new detention basin, new stormwater collection system, new pretreatment device on site, and then we're going to maintain our pre-development runoff for the 10-year event. We're going to treat the 1-year or 1-inch runoff with our manufactured pretreatment device. Obviously, no BMPs in the protected areas, and we'll have our stormwater maintenance agreement as required for site plan approval. All right, and then just kind of jumping into soil erosion and sedimentation control, we did add protective tree fencing along the east disturbance line. Thanks, Nolan, for pointing that out. So we'll have protective fencing along all that entire east side. Obviously, we'll have silt fence around the entire site, and then we'll have obviously topsoil seeding and mulch to stabilize the green space areas and obviously prevent erosion from the areas that we open up. And then lastly, I did have replace the species, so I think we're going to have for that landscape buffer on the front in the green space areas, we're going to have pin oaks instead of the snowdrift crabapple, and then we're proposing the Atlantic 9-bark for that front landscape area as well. So I actually have both of those species in my yard and love them, especially this time of year. So they were a nice fit. So again, appreciate staff's feedback on that. We made that adjustment, and that's what our proposal would be for site plan review as well. Yeah, and so our goal, it's been great working with Stafford Smith on this. Obviously, our goal is to receive, NFP approval for the stormwater management, soil erosion, sedimentation control, and so on. And, we want to increase or improve the site drainage and obviously maintain the existing riparian buffers and protect the watershed in that area. So that's just a quick assessment of our project there, and would love to hear your feedback. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I'd like to take a brief moment just to open it up for public comment. If there's any in-person comments, please come forward. Looks like there's none. We'll wait to hear for call-in comments now. We'll give that a minute to you just in case. Oh, okay. We'll give it another number 30 seconds or so.
Just in the meantime as well. So, I'll wait.
It still sounds like no call-in comments. All right, we'll move forward with board discussion. Nolan, you got something?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a note. So staff had been working with the applicant kind of during the publishing of the agenda and agenda packets. You'll notice in the staff report the 2 conditions for approval, or 3 conditions. 2 of them, one is related to that landscaping. The other is related to the tree protection fencing, both of which were highlighted and provided on the updated plans. So just keep that in mind as you navigate your discussion or make any motions. So
just to clarify, in a future motion, we wouldn't have to mention those as part of the motion. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So that both of those items have been corrected on their plans.
All right, thank you. All right, is there any board discussion or comments?
I got a couple. Just a clarification question. So tree protection along the east side of the woodland, but there's no removals needed for the building?
Yes, there is removals needed.
Okay.
We will, yeah.
I was just going to say, I believe in the application that I read, it said that none, that the applicant put no for needing any protected trees to be removed.
I don't believe any of the trees are protected.
Oh, okay.
That need to be, there were, and I'd probably need to verify that.
Okay.
There's a black walnut, there's a couple black walnuts, there's like a number of cottonwoods
Okay.
in there. There's less than 10 trees that need to be removed, and there's a few dead ones
Gotcha.
for the building. But yes, and it's a great point. So that would be something we would
Okay, that's,
codify and show on the plans as
so
well.
then they're underneath the, what is it, the size?
So it's, for this site, it's the woodland.
Classification there.
Yeah, so it's under woodland, so not applying the protected tree standard plus the woodland standard, just the woodland standard.
Okay.
So they're meeting the woodland standard, and then, so there are trees under that woodland standard, a certain amount to be removed so the building can be placed. The clarification staff wanted from the applicant was to make sure that the woodland that remains, even though there's that MDEQ wetland protection over there, still to ensure that there's tree protection fencing on the east end so that as they're constructing the building and maneuvering equipment and materials, someone's not backing into the tree line or damaging it
Absolutely.
further. So it's just that, yeah, any woodlands that are going to remain will add that protection fencing to ensure that the integrity of that is maintained.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. I'll continue if you guys don't mind. So for the tree species that you're planting, it sounds like you went back and forth on a couple different ones. So currently it's listed as Quercus plushus, correct? And that's what the plan is for the pin oak?
The pin oaks are proposed.
Right.
For the trees, yes.
So I believe in that where you're proposing to plant them there between what would be the building and the road, there are power lines overhead.
And they just redid those power lines too. That's
So
a good point.
that would not be a recommended species with the potential,
Okay.
80 feet. And I believe it's actually in the, not permitted underneath the tree committee guidelines there.
Okay.
So
Excellent point.
sticking
We can
with
change that.
species that, crabapple, serviceberry, things like that with
Okay.
lower growth height potential.
We'll make that change.
Thank you. And then the last thing I have at the moment is with the tree planting specs on the last page, the installation notes. I would recommend reading through the ISA planting best management practices, but one thing that stood out is that removal of the wire basket, it just says to bend down the top loops on the B&Bs. Minimum spec is 1/4 to 1/3 of the wire needs to be removed up from the top of the ball down, and if not more, if possible. But you really want to get that wire basket as well as the burlap off the top portion of the root ball. That's where most of the fine roots are going to be for the plant, and without that material in the way, they'll have a much better establishment success.
Okay. We'll make that change on the detail. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you. What size, height, and width do the Atlantic 9 bark get?
I'm sorry.
What size, width, and height do the Atlantic 9 bark get at maturity?
Well, the ones that I have are probably 4 foot high by 3 foot wide.
Okay,
And they've been planted for probably 5 years.
okay, that's perfect. I just noted your comments on your plant list had a 3-foot on center planting, and I just wanted you to take a look at that because it looks like they're probably planted more like 6 foot on center. So if your intent was to have a screen, you're probably not going to achieve that. with that. So I just wanted to bring that to your
Okay.
attention.
Okay, and I didn't know if that was maybe a part of our site plan comments too, of how many to put down through there, so.
Sure, and I don't want to, I'm not
No, it's a good,
directing you.
it's a
Yeah.
good comment. There will be, well, I won't say there will be, but most likely it'll be a discussion item around screening related to landscaping.
Okay.
Through the zoning code. So yeah, that will be something that probably gets brought up in site plan review. Yep.
Yeah, because I think mine are now, but I think about it, at 6-foot center, which is a nice spacing to have for those, so.
Yeah.
3 foot might be a little close. Okay.
Yeah, the notes are probably just,
Okay.
yeah, they're going to get planted, not as you are picturing. And then I had another question about the decision to do grass between the plants in that bed area rather than create a continuous mulch area. Your notes for both the shrub and the tree note bark, more hardwood shredded mulch around the shrubs and trees. So it seems like a no-brainer maybe to connect those, but it's
Okay.
ultimately up to you. I just wanted to
Okay.
throw that out there.
I agree with that. I think maintenance of that turf area would be really just kind of tough with all the
So
other.
connect the bark?
It's just a
down through there?
recommendation, but yeah, I mean, if you're
Okay.
thinking about trying to mow grass in between every one of those plants and trees, it'd be easier to mulch it and leave it be.
Yeah, we want to see your landscape be successful, so.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah, not really a question, but just an affirmation, perhaps. The way that you've navigated the woodland standard, I think, is perfect.
Okay.
The intent of that is to keep as large enough contiguous areas of woodland, not just on individual properties, but on, all connecting properties. And yeah, just the part you're taking out is the least contiguous with what's already there, it seems, and it's pretty thin anyway, so I just feel like it's
Okay.
ideal.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, is there any more comments or discussion from board members? Hearing none. All right, can I get a motion to approve the NFP site plan for 3317 and 3329 South Burke Street, conditioned upon full approval by the Site Plan Review Committee?
So moved.
Support.
All right. I think this one will need a roll call vote. Nolan, will you please call the roll?
Hollander?
Yes.
Frederickson?
Yes.
Stemple?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much for your help. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item G, unfinished business, NFP board work session. Nolan, do you have any additional information to provide on that item?
Yeah, so I know I wasn't here at last month's meeting, and I know you've had a copy of the draft NFP guide to take a look at and review. So I wanted to open it up during this time if there's any comments on that or concerns with what you've seen so far or things that you might want to see considered added. I just wanted to have a maybe brief discussion about that. And then just a reminder, and I know the announcements is after this, but I wanted to, as a reminder, we are looking at doing a joint board training with Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Natural Features Protection Board members. So you should have seen some invites go out for that, so make sure if you are available. I think Director Martin can speak to having attended one of those previously, but it's usually a good opportunity for all three to understand the role in the process, where they fall, and the interactions between each, and give staff a chance to give that broader overview of what everybody's working on. So really encourage that. If you are able to join. We'll probably have some type of refreshment to entice. So maybe coffee, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, I did not make it to that last meeting, but I do remember hearing really positive comments from previous board members about just being very informative and kind of knowing better like the interplay between kind of different boards and all that. So yeah, I do intend to try to make this next one.
All right. And it's okay if there's no comments on the draft guide at this time. You know, you feel free individually if you'd like to share those with me via email. No pressure. I just wanted to open it up because I keep talking about it. I really do have intentions of getting it across the finish line with your help, so.
Yeah, I'll acknowledge a nudge again in email form could be helpful for me personally.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Nolan, I did look at the last one you sent out, and I think it looks great.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'll have more specific feedback, and I'll try to be critical about something, but I genuinely think it's awesome.
Yeah, please berate me in an email. No, and it really is, you know, working with other staff in the development process, especially our development manager who graced your presence and covered for me at the last meeting, Miss Jamie McCarthy. You know, we think it's going to be a really helpful tool, not just for the general public, but really for everybody to be able to walk through some of that. And we know that, you know, we live it every day, we breathe it every day, but the zoning code and NFP ordinance and all that language and navigating that can be really difficult. So we want to try and lower the barriers down as much as possible. So I do appreciate that. Please send me that feedback. So.
Great, thank you. Are there any other communications or announcements from any board members? Sounds like none, so meeting adjourned.
I think so. No, I think if you're a little tardy, that'll be fine. I'll put it on your permanent record, but